Good morning, everyone. And first of all, a huge apology for the delay in presenting my presentation. So, I was given a task to prepare PPT on two topics, that is, the picture perception and description test, which is commonly known as our PPDT, and also the command task. So, my first presentation of picture perception and description test is here. So, picture perception and description test, or PPDT, as it's called in the easy language, it is a very important and a major part of our SSB interview. Now, if you see all of these smiles and you want to be one of them, we got to work really hard on this budget, PPDT. So, okay, let's begin. So, first of all, let's discuss what is the basic structure of SSB interview because it's very important to understand the structure of the procedure before we begin with any particular thing. So, the first is the screening process. Now, what makes the screening process a very important test? It is so because before you're given the chance to showcase your ability or your capability to be taken in the defense forces, or you showcase your ability that you are fit to be an officer, it is very important that you clear the screening process. Now, the screening process consists of two parts, that is, the Officer's Intelligence Rating Test, or the OIR, and obviously our PPDT. Now, what is the OIR test? As the name clearly states, that is, it is the officer's intelligence rating test. Now, the intelligence is rated or judged on the basis of two basic intelligence tests that are conducted consecutively and are to be performed or are to be given in a given time limit. Now, the time limit and the number of questions might differ from board to board, as the time that I was given in my first attempt in Gandhinagar, that was 17 minutes, and and the amount of time that I was given in my Dehradun attempt, that was 30 minutes. But obviously, the number of questions and the difficulty as well might have increased slightly. So the type of questions are the basic reasoning questions that could be our basic dice questions or our cube questions, basic maths questions, and also the odd one out and completing the series kind of questions, which is obviously very easy because once we prepare for our defense examinations or the written test, we always go for these kind of tests. We always go for this preparation. So OIR demands nothing and absolutely nothing out of the ordinary preparation time that you give for your written examination. It's all included in that. So all you have to do is keep in mind what you've done and what you've practiced for. Once you're done with your OIR, your PPDT starts. Now the PPDT in itself comprises of two parts. That is the picture perception, the first part, and the description test. That is the narration and the discussion of the story that you have written. Now, once you clear your screening process and you are heartily welcomed in the premises of your uh, selection board, the main process begins. And the main process includes of a series of tests which test your psychological skills. Then there comes the group testing, which tests a number of different things from your team spirit or your ability to work with the team and your ability to influence the team and all sorts of things. And then comes your personal interview, which is a very important segment of all of the process. And then all of it is finally concluded with a conference that is taken on the final day. Now let's start with our main discussion, that is of the PPDT. Now, the picture perception and description test is easily one of the most adrenaline inducing tests of your efficacy of percepting a picture. Now, why would I say that it is the most adrenaline inducing test of one's efficacy? That is because it defines or it tests or it tells you whether or not you're going to get screened in. So obviously there is a lot of tension, there is a lot to think about, and obviously there is a lot of adrenaline to perform well, and a lot of doubts and questions whether you'll be able to perceive the picture, whether you will be able to write it within time and everything of that sort. But it's not much of a big deal because we're going to help you out with this. So, what does this test really check? So, it is a test of your efficacy of percepting a picture shown. So, we are obviously shown a picture for a given period of time, and then we have to perceive the picture. Now, the picture might not be very clear, It might be a little hazy or super blurry. There have been instances where the picture was so blurry that there was no way that you could even define how many people there are, or what's their gender, or what are the surroundings. But that's where your skills come, and that's where you have to keep very calm and patient, and you have to keep your brain running and pick up any single thing that you can hardly perceive, or you could just perceive even a little from your picture, and you have to write a story on it. You have to organize your thoughts on that particular thing and not your thoughts run randomly, because that way you won't be able to focus on the same. And then you have to frame a sensible and a relatable story. Why a sensible story? Because you cannot just make a random story that is not even related to the picture shown to you. It has to make sense. It has to showcase everything that you have. You have to showcase basically your ability as an officer. All right. And then comes the narration. It is, I believe, one of the easiest parts of this test, because once you're done with your story, you get a little time, and then it's easy to keep it running in your mind over and over. So the narration becomes easy, and you have to present it in front of the group that has been assigned to you and in front of the assessors. And finally, when the narration of everyone is completed, you start with the discussion on the story to come to a common consensus or a common theme. So now this was the gist of what this test is all about. And no matter, obviously, and no matter what a piece of cake it may sound, that it's simple. You have to write a story, you have to present the picture, you have to narrate it and hold a discussion. SSB makes sure to not keep it so simple. So now let's get into the technicalities or the details of how the picture is to be perceived, and the story is to be framed, and what all things are given to us and what is expected of us. So a paper, first of all, before starting any kind of a test, they give you the details of it. They tell you it in Hindi and in English, and they give you the basic idea of how the test is to be conducted. So you're going to get the details of the test, each test before beginning it. So a paper is provided to the candidates on which personal details have to be filled up, following which space for writing the story is provided. As you can see here, we are given a space to write our personal information. That is the number of SSB board, your batch number, your chest number, your name, age, date. This is basically the same. One or two things might be added or removed. Then this section is given to us where we're going to write our story. So now let me tell you a little about the time that we're given. So the picture that is shown to us after handing out the papers and after we fill out our personal information, we are given about 30 seconds to perceive the picture. Basically, the picture shown to us is for 30 seconds. You have to see the picture clearly, you have to keep your mind calm, you have to perceive the picture in only 30 seconds, and you have to keep the details in mind in those 30 seconds. After percepting the picture for 30 seconds, another 1 minute will be given to you to fill out the details of the characters perceived from the image. Now, the details of the characters have to be stated here so that it becomes easy for the assessors to know what kind of things you have assessed, or what are the characters that you can see, and what are their mood, what's their age, what kind of a surrounding you're basically perceiving from the picture. So this section, as you can see, this one here, in this block, you have to fill out the details of your character, as many as you can see. If you've seen 5 characters, you mention 5 characters. If you've seen 3 characters, you mention 3 characters. Now, what are the things that you need to tell about all of these characters? So, that is their age. What is the age that you can judge from the picture that is shown to you? What is their gender, clearly, and what is their mood? Are they in a positive mood, or they're in a neutral mood, or they're in a negative mood? So these are the things that you have to mention in these boxes for all the characters that you see. And the character that you have considered as your main character or your hero, as we say, so you circle out the details of that particular character. For instance, if there are 3 more characters that I see, so I see that that person is in a positive mood. Now it's just very hard to keep it going with a mouse. And I see the character's age as about 20, and it's a male. But since that character is not my main character or the hero of my story, I'm not going to circle it. I am definitely going to mention it because I perceived that from my picture, but I would not be circling it. I would only be circling my main character. And then you have to write the theme around which your picture is going to be revolving. For instance, a picture is shown to you and you can see a case of a robbery. So what exactly is your picture going to rotate around? Obviously, the theme or the action of robbery. So you have to mention the theme or the action on which your story revolves. That comes under the action or the theme part. And then further, you are given further 4 minutes. After 1 minute of your time is completed to fill out the details of your characters and to fill out your theme or your action, another 4 minutes are given to you to devise your story. Now, the story need not be very lengthy because the time given to you is not a lot. And obviously, organizing your thoughts, writing the actions, starting it, concluding it demands a lot of time. So, you need not make it very lengthy. You're just given 4 minutes. So, you have to summarize all of it in under 4 minutes. So, let's just talk or let's just see an example of what kind of an image is shown to us. So, here, in case this picture is shown to us. Now, this picture, by the God's grace, is not hazy or blurred at all. So it's very easy for us to determine the kind of characters, the kind of surroundings that here are. So for me, I can see there are three characters in my picture. This man here, and the driver here. Obviously, the driver might not be very clear in the picture, but he certainly is a part of it, and he is. And he must be mentioned. That's how they check how alert you are or how quick you are to grab the surroundings of the picture or to grab the essence of the picture. So now here I see this character, this character, this character, all male. And if I were the candidate, I would go for this as the main character. But it's not necessary. You might make this man as your main character or this man as your main character. However, your story is gonna revolve. Now, we saw this image, we saw that image, and we know the positions of those characters. That man, the one with the bag or one with the sack, I considered him to be a male in a neutral mood, I would say, not a negative mood, in neutral mood, and of age about 30. Then I perceived another man, the one in the car, and he was trying to grab that man. He was also a male in positive mood of about 25 years of age. And then the driver, I would say, is male, positive mood, 26 years of age. Now, the action, what I have perceived from the picture, would be catching a robber or stopping a robbery or anything in which your story would be revolving. And now, when it comes to story, whatever the story might be. Now, after filling out my personal details, I'll be shown that picture for 30 seconds. And after I've been shown that picture for 30 seconds, I get 1 minute to fill out this section. And then I get, in that 1 minute, I get to fill this section and this section. So this part is to be done in 1 minute. After 1 minute is completed, another bell is rang, and you get to start your story. You have 4 minutes to write your story. Now, the space you see might not be enough, so you are very welcome to use the backside of the page. They tell you in your description of it. Now, let's just see or let's just check an example of how the story is to be written and how the story is to be narrated and how the story can be narrated. And you can be the better judge of how it should have been. So here is the picture, definitely not hazy, definitely not blurry. We can clearly see the number of characters, the surroundings, and what the picture could revolve around. So what do we see here? That there are four characters here. This one is blurry for some reason. You can see four characters here. I perceive these three as male, and this is clearly a woman. And it seems like kind of a discussion that is being held, or it could be a part of a party. or any scene like that. So let's just see the story, sorry, that is being framed. So Prashant, 18-year-old class 12 student of Presidency School, Bengaluru, decided to start preparation for Teachers' Day celebration a fortnight before September 5. He called his whole batch to the common room to plan on events to be finalized it. A slideshow of pictures appreciating their teachers and their achievements, a humorous theme assembly, grand activities of racing, footballs, and at last tug of war between outgoing batch and teachers, all preceding a grand tea party. They pooled in money and divided the work and budget among themselves. Prashant overlooked the work of designing the tea party and also coordinated with other teams on their work. They made greeting cards for teachers to invite them for the show and the preparations that are being held, and the celebrations went perfectly well. Prashant and his whole batch were happy to create a memorable experience for their teachers. Now, what the person from the one who has written the story, what that person has perceived is that this is an image of a Teachers' Day celebration, and the kids are discussing amongst themselves of all the things that are going to happen or all the programs that are they going to showcase. So, this is how easy a picture should be. Sorry, this is how easy a story should be. You need not complicate it just to showcase how different you are, because you might as well confuse yourself. You might not get enough actions for it. And we have to focus a lot on the actions that will define a story. So, this was one of the examples. Let's proceed further. The narration and the group discussion is an essential part of it all, because I have seen from my experiences that even though the story might not hold a lot of gravity, or at times it might not even be related to the picture that is shown to us, but the narration and the group discussion works like a miracle and magic for those people. You have to be super confident when you narrate your story, and you have to be an active participant of your group discussion. So let's just discuss some of the points. As soon as the candidates have completed their story, they are formed in groups of 12 to 14 members then the GD starts. So before starting the GD or before starting the narration, the candidates are divided into 12 into a group of 12 to 14 members, and at times they may increase the number. It might not be 12 members or 14 members to be precise. It might be 15 members and at times 20 members as well. It has happened before, so be prepared for everything. So, as soon as you've done writing your stories, your papers are collected, and now the groups have been formed. The groups have been formed, you've been entered into the room, and you see three assessors there. They obviously give you the summary of how the narration is going to be. They tell you that we start with the lowest chess number, that is the starting chess number of your group, and then it goes all around. Everyone would be narrating their story, and once the person stops narrating, the other has to start. The other has to start his or her own narration. Now, the time given for your narration is 1 minute. And it's not necessary that they give you 1 minute. If they get the gist of your story, they might as well stop you in the middle. They might not give you 1 minute, or they might give you more than 1 minute. It all depends on the assessors. So once we are done with our narration, as soon as the last member of your group ends his narration, the GD starts immediately. There will be no signal from the assessors. They tell you in the very beginning that once the last person has done narrating his or her story, you start the group discussion. It becomes hell of a fish market, and you have to be very precise on how you proceed about it. We're going to discuss about that later. Let's just go through the basic points first. So the description test has two parts. First is individual narration that we've already discussed, where a candidate will tell his or her story to every group member, and second is group discussion that is conducted right away as the individual narration of the stories are over, or the last candidate is done narrating his or her own story. Now, the candidate with the least just number starts narrating his or her story as already discussed, and is given only 1 minute to conclude their story. Once finished, the next candidate will start his or her narration. As the narration is done, no signal will be given by the assessors. Candidates have to start the GD by instinct. The discussion will go on for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then either group can itself conclude the discussion by picking one story or whatever they have discussed, or that is the best, sorry, or they might narrate the story as their final story of that one candidate that they deemed fit, or it fit the perception or the description of the picture well. Now, let's discuss about some important points. So, there is a basic structure. First of all, we'll begin with the way you have to write your story. So, there is a basic structure that one's story should follow. It makes your story look clean, organized, and it is definitely an advantage if your story looks clean and it looks organized. So, how the basic structure of the story should be. So, the story must begin with the description of your lead character, which must include its name, age, profession, and where he or she belongs from. So, once you start the story, it would and it should not start from what caused the problem. It should always start with the description of your main character. Ram, a 23-year-old MBA student from Bengaluru, from Chandigarh University or from anywhere. Okay, so now you have given the basic description of your lead character. Once you've given the description of your lead character, following this must come the part that defines what led to the situation which you're apparently solving in your story. Now, obviously, when you saw the picture, you must have perceived uh, some sort of a problem in the story that you need to solve. Like in the example that we saw, the problem of the story is, or the perception or the theme of the story was to conduct a farewell party, or sorry, to conduct a Teachers' Day celebration on Teachers' Day. So following this must come the part that defines what led to the situation which you're apparently solving in in your story. Both these parts must be concluded in 1.5 to 3 lines. Now, the description of your character and what led to the situation and what led to your problem that you're going to solve should be concluded in maximum 3 lines. Not more than that. You don't have the time for it, and yeah, you don't have the time for it. And that is how it should be. I mean, 3 lines is enough to describe your story and the problem there is. You don't need to extend it up to half of the page, or you're writing 10 lines, you're just describing what the problem is. That is not how it should be. You have your problem, and now what must be elaborated are the actions that you're going to write, or the main part of your story that would be focused on solving the problem that you have already stated. That is what is most important. So, the next part, that is the actions taken by your lead character, to solve the situation must involve at least 5 to 8 actions. Now, a minimum of 5 to 8 actions is necessary once you're writing a story, because it tells the assessors that you don't have just one or two ways to solve a problem, but you have a series of actions that you can take to solve a particular problem. And then it is followed by the conclusion of your story. Now, the conclusion of your story basically ends with they were happy with the results, they were all satisfied with the results, they were happy with the efforts put. That is the basic way and the easiest way to conclude your story. Now, we try to wrap up the story in about 100 words as it gets difficult to write a lot, since the time allotted to you is only 4 minutes. So it's not necessary that you have to end it in just 100 words. But if you are a fast writer, you can definitely exceed that limit. But if you're not, you might need to organize your time a little that way. So now it's not very necessary, or it's not always important that you conclude your story once writing, because at times the picture is so blurry that you need a little more time to percept or to think of a problem. So when you start writing the story, हर बार वो खत्म नहीं हो पाती है. कभी कभी उसका कंक्लूजन रह जाता है, या फिर बीच में एक आध स्टेप्स रह जाते हैं, एंड विच इज वेरी नॉर्मल. यू नीड not worry about it at all, because you can always compensate it when you are narrating. And narration, I say again, narration is a very important part of this test. So after your sheets have been submitted, it is always advised to go over your story again and again. And if some points that you wished to add in your story were left out, can most definitely be included in your narration. So once I've written my story, completed or not, once they have taken my sheet, I get a little time before my discussion or my narration, so what I can do is go over my story again and again. I know what was my theme. I will not change my theme no matter what. I will not change my characters. I will not change the age, gender of my characters, the mood of my characters, influenced by the theory, sorry, influenced by the thoughts of others. Because what is the basic thing, or what is the biggest mistake that other people do, that once their sheets have been collected, they start discussing it with other chess numbers. What was your theme, what was your story, what were your actions, did you perceive that person as male or female, and all of these things. So it takes a huge toll on your confidence. So that is something that you should never do, and always trust your thoughts and your story. It is very important. All you have to do is trust your story, your thoughts, and go over your story again and again in your mind. If there are a few more points or a few more actions that are good and you forgot to add it in your story, or you didn't have the time to jot them down, so it's always advised to compensate it when you are narrating it. So you frame your story and you conclude your story once you are revising your story. One can always modify, make modification, but modifications must only remain to adding of new steps and not altering your story altogether or changing the theme. Once you're revising the story, you are always advised to just add new steps, but not modify your theme or basic or not change the essence of your story. That is bound to go against you if they see you. It is bound to go against you if they see that you cannot even be confident of your own thoughts and what you have written. It is very advisable to be very confident of what you write. It is advised not to go around asking and discussing with others their themes and stories, as it might affect your confidence and take a toll on your narration part, as we already discussed. Now, the important part, if the group discussion becomes a fish market, and it happens almost every time, the group discussion is bound to become a fish market. That's where your leadership skills come out. If the group discussion becomes a fish market, a candidate should try to calm everybody down and continue the discussion in a well mannered way. Now, what happens during the discussion is it has once the last candidate stops the narration, everyone starts speaking. Once everyone has started speaking, everyone is shouting because they need to get their voices heard. It becomes hell of a fish market. Now, what you can do is, as a team, not as a team leader, but as a person with the qualities of a team leader or with the qualities of an officer, you can try to calm the group down. You can always try. It is not certain that they would be calmed down because everyone needs to show themselves in the spotlight. So it's not, I mean, it mostly never happens, but if you've got that thing in you, you might as well be able to calm the group down. But you don't only have to focus on calming everybody down. You cannot be like, okay, just number these, stop it, or we can hold a decent conversation. We cannot create a fish market. You also, if they don't stop creating a ruckus, you need to stop. And you need to find that time when everybody takes a breather. That fraction of second is your time where you can say it in a loud and a clear voice that let's take this discussion in a calm way ahead as we have to come to a conclusion, and let's start discussing the theme of the story first. So that way, you've presented yourself as a person who is capable or responsible enough to tell the group that it is your responsibility to lead this group into a final consensus. Now, don't let the discussion go away from, don't let your discussion go away from the topic of PPDT, because people tend to focus on things of the story that are not even, that don't hold much gravity. Like, I've seen people discussing or literally arguing ferociously about what must be the gender of the character. That is the final thing that you need to worry about. The main thing that you need to worry about is the theme of your story. So try to interrupt very carefully, because interrupting in these kind of situations can go both ways for a candidate. Now, you might not, you might as well come aggressive. if you're interrupting them. But you don't have to come out as aggressive. You just have to lead them to a fine path, or you have to lead them to a calmer path of discussion. So never become ferocious, never become very angry, never make faces when you see other candidates being very quite a lot in spotlight. So you need to keep it easy and you need to be very smart when you do it. Give chance or inspire everyone to speak and praise others' points too, if possible. It shows a supportive nature in PPDT. Now, you don't have to hold your ground or you don't have to take your stand in everything that you're saying because it's not necessary that you might be able to convince a group such so large with their own thoughts and their will or their zeal to showcase or prove their point. So you don't always have to hold your ground. At times when you hear the discussion or you hear the stories of others, there is that story or there is that one particular point that might be very interesting of some other candidate, so you need to acknowledge it in front of everyone. Like, we could be in a discussion and I can go like, I agree with the point of chess number 52. I believe that the point spoken by him or her uh, can add value to our story. So you need to add value to your story and to add value to your narration or to add value to your group discussion, you might as well add value to some others form. That is just a way of it. You have to be very smart. That's the gist of it. So in story writing, the story should be positive and must sound real. In story writing, now obviously the story should be positive. You cannot go around and that person died and they were very sad and that is how you conclude your story. You never do that. You're a positive person. You're going to be an officer. You always have a positive mind. So in story writing, the story should always be positive and must sound real. Now you cannot be going on a space mission. You cannot be on moon and you cannot be creating the space stations or something like that. It must be story, it must be on ground level. And always about inhuman fictional possibilities in PPDT, like an alien attack, or as USA always shows, we have been attacked by those ugly aliens from God knows where. So that is all about our discussion. And if you're up for some practice of it, and here are some pictures that are for you. Now, this is the kind of picture that we are definitely and most positively and certainly showed in PPDTs. All blurry, all hazy. Still, we can perceive what the picture is all about, but you get the idea of it. That is one picture. This is one picture. Here, this is one picture.